You know, there's a moment I'll never forget when my granddaughter, Lucy, she was about 6 years old, sitting at the kitchen table, her little face scrunched up like a storm cloud. When I asked her what was wrong, she just shoved her crayons aside and said, "I don't know, Grandma." Sound familiar? It hit me then. Kids feel things big. Joy, frustration, worry. It all comes to them like a tidal wave. And while we can't stop those waves, we can teach them how to swim. That's what emotional intelligence is all about, helping our grandkids understand their feelings, and maybe even handle life's ups and downs a little better. And let me tell you, friends, this isn't about being a perfect grandparent. It's about being a present one. Today, let's talk about 3 simple, everyday ways we can help our grandkids grow into kind, resilient little humans. And don't worry, these aren't fancy psychology tricks. They're the same tools our own parents used, just dressed up for modern times. First up, the power of I see you. Now, I don't mean literally staring at them while they build Legos, though that's nice too. I'm talking about active listening. You remember little Timmy from next door? Last week, he burst into my house crying because his ice cream fell off the cone. Now, my first instinct was to say, "Oh, it's just ice cream. We'll get more." But instead, I knelt down and said, "Wow, that must have been so disappointing. You were really looking forward to that, huh?" His whole face changed. He nodded and said, "It was chocolate, Mrs. Miller." By naming his feeling disappointed, I gave him a flashlight in that emotional dark room. Try it next time. That sounds frustrating. Or, "You seem really proud of that drawing." It's like handing them a dictionary for their heart. Now, the second tool, walking the talk. Kids are like sponges. They soak up what we do, not just what we say. My grandfather taught me this without ever saying a word. Every Sunday, he'd visit Mrs. O'Brien down the street, just to ask how her arthritis was doing. One day, I asked why we kept going, and he said, "Because lonely is a heavy thing to carry alone." That stuck with me. Now, when I take my grandson to the food bank, I don't just say, "Be kind." I tell him, "See how Mr. Ray's face lights up when you hand him that can? That's what hope looks like." We're not just feeding bellies, we're feeding empathy. And here's the third piece, the magic of Me Too. When Lucy told me she was nervous about her school play, I didn't just say, "You'll be fine." I said, "You know, I still get butterflies before bingo. Want to hear what I do?" Sharing our own stories, the messy, real ones, builds bridges. It tells them, your feelings aren't strange. You're not alone in this. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what if I say the wrong thing? "Oh, honey," I botched this plenty. Just last month, I told my grandson his fear of thunderstorms was silly. Had to eat humble pie with a side of, "Let's try that again." The truth is, emotional intelligence isn't about getting it perfect. It's about showing up again and again with our hearts open. And here's the beautiful part. Every time we do this, we're not just shaping their future. We're healing bits of our own past. 2. Now, these 3 tools, listening, modeling, sharing, they're just a beginning. Because once we've laid this foundation, we can start helping them navigate the really tricky stuff. You know, after we lay that foundation, listening, modeling, sharing, my grandson Charlie taught me something important. He came over last month, arms crossed, declaring, "Grandpa, I'm not sorry," after squabbling with his sister. And I realized naming feelings is one thing. But what happens when those feelings turn into storms? That's where our next tool comes in, building an emotional vocabulary. Think of it like giving kids a map for their inner world. When my granddaughter Rosa was little, she'd just say, "I'm mad." But mad can mean anything from "my tower fell" to "I miss mommy." So we started playing weather report at breakfast. She'd say, "I'm sunny," or "I feel cloudy with a chance of grumpy." Suddenly, she had words for the shades between joy and anger. "Grandma, I'm frustrated," she'd say, stomping her foot. And I'd think, there's my little meteorologist. You don't need fancy charts, though those help. Just notice feelings out loud. Your voice sounds wobbly, nervous, or your eyes are sparkling, excited, which brings me to problem solving together. Now, This isn't about fixing things for them. It's about handing them the toolbox. Take Charlie and his sister. Instead of say sorry, I asked, what could we do to make things better? He mumbled, maybe share my Lego? I said, let's try that. And if it doesn't work, we'll brainstorm again. Here's the secret. Kids don't need us to have all the answers. They need us to sit in the mess with them. Like when Rose's hamster passed away. She wailed, it's not fair. I didn't say, everything happened for a reason. I said, you're right. It's not fair. What do you think might help your heart? She whispered, a funeral with flowers? So we buried Whiskers under the rose bush, and she sobbed into my sweater. That's emotional intelligence, not avoiding the hard stuff, but walking through it hand in hand. And here's a surprise. These tools work for us too. Last week, I caught myself grumbling about a missed doctor's appointment. My husband said, sounds like you're disappointed, love. And just like that, the steam went out of me. Turns out, we're never too old to grow. But let's circle back to Charlie and his not sorry moment. Because after the storm comes a rainbow. You know, this little sunflower taught me more about resilience than any parenting book ever could. Last summer, a storm snapped its stem clean in two. My grandson, Jake, was devastated. But instead of tossing it, we splintered it with popsicle sticks and twine. Jake checked it every morning, whispering, grow stronger, okay? And wouldn't you know, it bloomed brighter than all the others. That's our fourth tool, teaching resilience through yet. When Jake grumbles, I can't tie my shoes, I add, yet. That tiny word cracks open a door of possibility. It's not about dismissing their frustration. It's about saying, this is hard and you're still learning. Let's try again tomorrow. And here's the fifth gem, cultivating kindness beyond family. Emotional intelligence isn't just for home. It's for the playground, the grocery store, the wide, wide world. Take my granddaughter, Mia. She once saw a boy sitting alone at the park and said, he looks like a lost puzzle piece. So we baked cookies together, and she marched over, saying, want to share? I'm Mia. That moment, it wasn't about the cookies. It was about showing her that kindness is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And grandparents, we've got a secret superpower here. Time. Time to walk slower, notice more, and say, see that cashier? Let's ask how her day's going. Now, I won't sugarcoat it. This work is messy. There'll be days when you're the one needing a popsicle stick splint, like when I snapped at Jake for spilling paint, only to realize I was the one overtired. But here's the grace. We get to model apologies too. Grandma was frustrated, and that wasn't your fault. Let's clean up together. So let's tie this all together, shall we? We've talked about listening deeply, living our values, sharing stories, building emotional words, solving problems with them, nurturing resilience, and stretching kindness outward. But really, it all boils down to one thing: showing up. Not perfectly, but persistently. Every time we name a feeling, every time we kneel to their eye level, every time we say, let's figure this out, instead of here's the answer, we're planting seeds. Seeds that'll grow long after we're gone. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one moment where you saw emotional intelligence bloom in your grandchild? Or maybe a time you thought, I wish I'd handled that differently? Share below. Your story might be the lifeline another grandparent needs. And if this resonated with you, pass it on. Hit like, share with a friend, and subscribe. Let's grow a garden of emotionally wise kiddos, one conversation at a time. Because here's the truth, friends. The greatest gift we give our grandkids isn't in our wills. It's in their hearts. And that's a legacy no storm can break.